Welcome back, everybody. Today we're going over this optic that you see in my hands right here and that you saw throughout the intro on a couple different rifles. This is the Vortex Razor 1:6 Gen 2E. So that's kind of a lot wrapped up in there. So obviously it's a low power variable optic going from 1x to 6x. One thing I will tell you right up front, people always ask, how's the 1x? Is it a true 1x? For a 1:6, it's absolutely excellent and probably the best I've seen in the 1:6 range. And I say that because for those that don't understand low power variable optics, something that is a 30mm tube like we have here, all things being equal, a 1:4 generally speaking, is going to have a better 1x than say like a 1:8. Now there's a lot of math that goes into that, but another thing that also goes into it is the type of glass that they have. This one here, of course, has high density glass. That helps a lot in terms of getting yourself a true 1x. And this one, again, very, very close, which is nice because it gives you a lot of speed up close and personal. But then, of course, when you spin that ring over, you get out to 6 power and it gives you a lot more capabilities to either positively identify targets, discriminate between targets, and then, of course, if you have to engage those targets, do so with much better precision than you probably could with that red dot. So, all of that aside, let's let the dogs take a look at it and then get into the details of the scope. And at the end, we'll wrap it up, hopefully with what I think of it overall. We'll start out here at the back of the scope and sort of work our way forward so that way we can have some sort of order to this. We do have a fast focus eye ring here. What this is going to allow you to do is to focus the reticle to your eye. Everybody's eye is a little bit different, whether it be because of astigmatism or different prescriptions or age or whatever the case may be. It allows you to get the reticle as crisp as it could possibly be for what you see, because everybody sees things a little bit differently. So that is that. Now the lenses, both the rear and the front, are going to have some interesting coatings on them. The one that's probably most important to me anyway is going to be their Armor Tech coating. Basically, it's a specialized coating that Vortex has developed in order to prevent scratching. Now, I've never used the lens caps pretty much really ever in my life, so I certainly have a fair number of scratched up optics. This one, we have no scratching on it at all, and it's been out in dirt and all kinds of other conditions in my range bags that are full of dirt and all kinds of other things. So that certainly is good. And then they have Vortex's proprietary XR Plus coating for highlight transmission and good color clarity and all of those sorts of things as well. You know, we're going to roll in photos of what it looks like through the actual glass here throughout the video. However, I will tell you, there's absolutely no way that you can really say, or rather see, when you're lining up a bunch of different lenses to take a photo of a lens. It's kind of hard to do. Then we have our Magnification Adjustment ring here. You can see there it's on 6 now, and to turn it all the way back to 1, you have to do so with a pretty strong grip on there, and it's actually a pretty long distance. So just looking at it now, we have the 6 there on the top, and then the 1 there is almost 180 degrees around on the bottom. So it's a pretty long throw, and it's stiff. When I first got it in, this thing was ridiculously stiff, and over time it has loosened somewhat, but you guys can see, look at my grip there. I mean, I'm having to kind of really grab it. My knuckles are getting white there just to turn it, and you can imagine, of course, when it's in a mount, it's a little bit harder. So that really is a con for this scope compared to others out there. I don't know why they made it so stiff, but it's very stiff. So if you want, they have those little cattail options that you can buy and put on there. If you're going to use it, you know, for any type of serious use or competition where the scores matter to you, I would definitely recommend doing that. It will make a world of difference, but unfortunately, that's one of the few cons I'm going to have for this scope. It is super, super stiff. On the left side of the scope, we're going to have our battery compartment. It takes a CR2032 battery, very common, and it comes with one as well if that's important to you guys. And then we have this actual illumination adjustment system, which I really like. I like pretty much everything about it, actually. It goes from 1 to 11, so Spinal Tap would be proud. On 11, it's absolutely daylight bright. It's daylight bright in any conditions you can imagine, so it's definitely got plenty of power going to that dot. And then it has the in-between settings as well. If I can actually quiet down, you might actually be able to hear the actual clicks as well. So there's definitely like a tactile feedback when you're actually making your adjustments. What I really like, again, is those in-between settings, so that way you don't have to spin it the entire way. Should you want to actually turn your illumination on, all you need to do is pull out, put it over one, and actually it's on now. You don't actually have to lock it down for it to be illuminated, and then push it back down, and it ain't going anywhere. Both the windage and the elevation turrets are capped, as you guys can see here. The caps have good knurling. They're easy to take on and off. Everything's O-ring sealed. Same here at the battery compartment, if I forgot to mention that. And as you guys can see there, each click equals half an MOA, or roughly half an inch at 100 yards. So that's how you make your adjustments on there. Very crisp, very tactile, audible there. I'll put it next to the microphone so you guys can see there. Definitely gives you good feedback there as the end user. And then if you want to actually set your zero, you can just remove this little screw here, turn it, and then set it back to 0, so that way you know if you want to say dial up or something like that, you can do so. This one here, of course, has the JM reticle. Probably not what you're going to do with this reticle, but if you have MOA or MRAD reticle, some folks probably would do that. That said, I personally probably wouldn't do that with a low power variable optic, but the option is there should you choose to do so. Same here, if you guys want to hold for wind or dial for wind, you can do so. And again, very tactile, very audible. Same thing, you can just take it out there and set your zero if you choose to. The reticle that we went with on this scope is the JM1 reticle. Like I just said, there's other options. However, I think the JM1's probably the most popular out there. It is a BDC type of reticle. And while we're talking about reticles, we should bring up the focal plane. This is a second focal plane scope. So what that means is the reticle is going to stay the same size throughout the magnification range as you see it. And if you're actually going to use the Mills MOA or the BDC reticle to actually determine the size of something or your holdovers, they're only going to be correct at the highest magnification. So that's something you have to keep in mind. Me personally, on a low power variable optic scope, I've said this before, I tend to prefer a second focal plane. That could be its own video though, I suppose, but just know that. And I think the pictures that I rolled in there should make it as clear as possible as to what that actually means for the new folks out there. So the BDC here is designed to be zeroed out at 200 yards, and it's designed to work with a wide variety of ammunition in a wide variety of different conditions, barrel lengths, etc., whether they be 5.56, 223, or even 308. So you guys can see here on the screen what ammo and the velocity that they say it works best with. One thing I will say though is whatever you want to, or rather end up using ammo-wise with this reticle, make sure you actually test it out and confirm where your holdovers are, or at least run it through a ballistic calculator and get yourself some pretty good data. One thing I'll mention is that I found using my M193, which is what I typically use, I was a little bit off there, even with the 200 yard zero, simply because I think a lot of the longer range holdovers are they're kind of a little better suited for the heavier stuff. So just keep that in mind, know your holdovers, and you should be good to go. So that is the reticle there. In terms of the dot size, of course, it's second focal plane, so it's going to change. So on 6 power, it's going to be 0.5 MOA, and on 1 power rather, it's going to be 3 MOA. So again, the dot is going to change depending on where you have your magnification set at, and then you have your holdovers there that you can use for the different distances depending again on the ammo that you're using. But basically it's going to get you out to 400 yards pretty easily with those holdovers regardless of the caliber and round you're using. One thing I neglected to mention so far in the video is what makes the Gen 2 versus the Gen 2E, which is what we have here, different. Now this one is Gen 2E, like I mentioned in the intro. Big difference is going to be weight. So this one here weighs in right at 21 ounces on my scale on the dot. That's with the battery. So compared to the earlier version, I think that one was like 25.5 ounces or something like that. That was the Gen 2, so you shaved about 1/4 pound off of it. Both of those had 30mm rings. I believe the first generation had 34mm rings. So the process in terms of evolution of this optic has been to make it smaller, lighter, or smaller and lighter, a combination of them, and still give you the same capability and ruggedness that you got with the early one that gained it so much popularity. So from everything I've seen, this one absolutely does that. Just some kind of observations from a guy like me who uses a lot of low power variable optic scopes. One thing that's very, very good about this, like we mentioned earlier, is the 1x. It's very fast. It doesn't have a lot of magnification or edge clarity, distortion that a lot of less expensive optics have, particularly in this price range. Again, a lot of that has to do with the HD glass that this one has. It also has low dispersion glass. Again, both of those things are going to lead to really, really good edge-to-edge clarity. So cannot be mad about that. Again, the field of view will be here in your in the bottom of your screen here, and you guys can also see the picture that we're rolling in. It basically gives you everything you'd see if you're looking through your scope with two eyes open. You're not really going to notice any difference in terms of the image that you see from your right eye, if you're right eye dominant, of course, and your left eye not looking through the scope. So that is something that this scope does very, very well. Like I said, good turrets there, no issues at all. It is made in Japan. That's one thing some folks kind of like or don't like. Japanese optics, especially if they're made at the one plant that a lot of us know about, are very good. Rather, they make very good glass, the HD glass, good coatings, all of that stuff. But yeah, it's not made in America. I get that. Very few low power variable optics are, and even many of those that are, the internals actually aren't made in America as well. So there's just not a lot of options out there for it, particularly not at this price point. So let's talk about price point. Price point on this one, I think the MSRP is like $1,999. Real world street price, you can pretty much always find it right around $1,400, sometimes a little bit less if you follow the sales and the codes and all those things, which if you aren't following me over on Facebook, make sure you do, because that's where I post all of those sorts of things. But it's expensive. It's not as expensive as some other offerings out there, but the lightweight and the glass clarity and the 1x-ness of it, if that's a word, combined with the absolutely daylight bright red dot, definitely set it apart from a lot of the other options out there on the market. I think that's pretty much it. If you guys have any questions about the scope, you can definitely post those below in the comment section. You can definitely ask those over at my Facebook page as well. It's the best place to get answers from me if you guys are looking for answers. But I mean, all in all, I think it's a very good scope. The Gen 2E hasn't been around that long. I've had this one pretty much since right when they came out. Again, no issues at all. And it's just a solid optic all the way around. Do you need to pay $1,400 to get, you know, 1:6 optic? Nope. You could pay a lot more. There's some that are double and triple this price. And I'm not sure you're getting a ton more than you would with this one here. So that's pretty much it. Thanks for watching, guys. Thanks for subscribing, and hope to see all of you in the next video.